course of time. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go into a bit of a recap of what we did in the earlier session, and then we'll try to do some groundwork, and maybe we'll go into some process of a CAP service development, so we know how the things are connected to each other. Before that, if there are any specific question on any of the things that we have covered so far, maybe any one of you, feel free to ask. Okay, seems we are good. Okay, perfect. I'll start with the session then. So in the earlier session, what we were mainly going through is how BTP is been placed in the world of a technology of SAP, and how they are trying to expose the things so that the things can be managed via BTP. Now, this BTP ideally provides you the gateway for different things, be it a connection to an on-premise system, or let's just say anything which you are developing natively onto the cloud, or also what we can call it as a cloud native application, right? So when we are going with that, what we understood is, as a part of this tenure, we'll be learning the BTP CAP-M, and during the development, we'll see how the backend service can be generated, HANA Cloud instance can be generated, how multiple on-premise system can be connected, how the end-to-end Fiori application can be generated out of the CAP service that we would have created. On top of it, third-party communication that we are talking about, Azure Cloud is one of the way we'll be dealing with it. The most important pioneer thing of the service development will be the security aspect of it, because without security, definitely you won't see any of the applications endpoint services getting deployed. So earlier, SAP was quite open in that term. If you would like to secure your services that you are developing, you can do that. If you do not want to, you can avoid it. In SAP's delivered services, that would be there. But now SAP has become more strict on the direction as well. They won't allow you deploying any endpoint services which does not have required security architecture implemented. Okay, so that's now placed as a check on the point of a deployment itself. So what we understood is that when you are creating a BTP account, or when your organization is requesting for a BTP account, you will create your one dedicated global account for your organization. Plus, you will have your accounts, or I can say your system connected to so-called sub accounts. There can be certain providers to it. So, for example, my AWS is my service provider. So my AWS is the person, or I can say is the party who is helping me with the platform as a service kind of offering, because they are providing me the platform onto which I can do my technical application development activity. So they provide us a platform with required environment where all my application can survive, or I can say can be developed, can be deployed, can be executed, right? And the region into which it is located is called US East. So they might have their services located at different places. So we understood the concept of a provider and the region. Now we'll also understand today the concept of a multi-environment, what it is. Maybe in a way we know, but let's just understand it in a broader way. What is multi-environment? Because you will see it written in multiple, or I can say mostly all the places of BTP, because that's a capability. That's something they definitely will highlight upon. But we should be knowing what it is. Okay, so uh, before we jump onto that, let's just also make our development environment up and ready, so that maybe by the time we are gone through the recap, maybe we should also be ready to start the development. So in the last session, we understood that out of all the services which SAP provides, which are available into service marketplace, one application development capability they are providing is in the form of a SAP Business Application Studio. I can go ahead and open it, and I can create my dev space. So we created one dev space in our last session. That particular dev space that we created will by default be in the stop mode after, let's just say, some time of inactivity. We have to start that again. Now this dev space has been stopped to save the underlying work processes being running. It does not mean the code base, the activity that you would have done will be gone. It just to ensure that the resources which are not under use are not occupied, and that can help boosting the performance of the thing that you may be working on at that point in time. Okay, So what we understood is that your BTP sub account has been divided into certain things. Okay. Now, your BTP sub account, if you just go over here, you will find that the sub account has got a general ID. Now, these are the things that you would definitely get into your certain BTP certification. Also, if you are going through that, okay, what is a way to uniquely identify your sub
Sumit, are you
account here?
sharing? Are you sharing
I
it or
I think I am. Is anyone? I hope
um?
you all are able to view the screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Okay,
let me
maybe
rejoin.
I'll.
I think so. Maybe I will
If needed, maybe I can reshare. That's okay. Okay, maybe if you want, you can try rejoining. If that still
yeah,
doesn't work, maybe let me
yeah.
know. I'll reshare. So you might also encounter this thing that your during your certification, what are the ways to uniquely identify your sub account? Sub account ID should be one of them. Within your sub account, you would see when you talk about multi environment, you see there is something called Cloud Foundry environment and Kaima environment, right? So when I say environment, environment is nothing but some sort of let's just say in non-technical term, I could say some atmosphere, some setup which will be required in order for the system to execute to run your services which are being deployed on top of it. Okay. So as in this particular sub account, I have two different flavors of an environment called Cloud Foundry environment and Kaima environment. You would see that this Cloud Foundry or sub account has been set up as a multi environment, that it has got the capability that it can run the services in two different flavors. By default, the one which will be enabled over here will be Cloud Foundry environment. At a point in time, I can have multiple environment running on my system depending on the resources which are allocated to it. Okay, that's the main idea. Okay, now when I say this environment is there, so for example, I am saying that there is some setup on my local system which enables me to do some sort of application development on Java, or let's just say do some application development on, for example, a ABAP environment. Okay, now when I say that some system setup is available on my local system, which is enabling me to do some development onto ABAP. Definitely, ABAP development will need some libraries, will need some basic setup, which will uh, identify or which will say, okay, what is the meaning of, let's just say, ABAP select, what is the meaning of ABAP variable declaration data, all those libraries and everything are also called as a API. So each environment ideally will have its own set of a master data, own set of a master libraries from where it would be interpreting whatever you are saying, whatever your code line is saying, whatever your execution is happening, what ideally system should behave on top of it. That's the reason you will say each environment will over here have a API endpoint. This API endpoint is ideally nothing but a centralized library which helps the system to make some interpretation during the execution, saying, okay, what is the thing which are going to get executed. If you are saying, for example, some network activities going on. Okay, one sec.
Yeah, somehow I'm unable to.
No worries. I'll reshare. I hope now, maybe I guess in 30 seconds or so, you should be able to. If not, then maybe
So,
I hope there will be some issue from your network side. Are you
yeah,
able to?
yeah, no,
I
somehow it's showing blank here. Okay, I will join from mobile. No problem. Could be.
yeah, maybe. Okay. Okay. So
Okay,
these are the
okay, okay.
libraries which ideally helps you with the different activities. So for example, certain network policies, certain whenever you are trying to logging in, what all things should come into picture in case of user access and authentication, what all things should play a role. All those things are ideally written in the form of an API over here. Okay, that's one. Now, on top of it, you would also see that there are certain organization. So this Cloud Foundry has been identified, or this has been given a unique ID again in the form of some organization ID over here, which gives you the space so that when I say I'm deploying some application, right? So for example, I'm creating one application over here whose purpose is to just display some data. whose purpose is to just one sec, display some data, and it's a lightweight application, does not eat into much of the, let's just say, space, or I can say runtime space, which I do have available. Then it might, let's just say, occupy some 100 KB of it. Then there is a huge application which is also dealing with certain media things, certain transaction which are going on here, and there are certain third-party connections, some sort of a management application, which is occupying, for example, 100 MB of it. So likewise, the resources that you would have got, if they are exceeding so-called organization memory limit called 4096, then definitely your application might start behaving slow. And over and above this, anyway, you won't be able to uh, let's just say deploy any other application. So as there is a trial, this something that you will see, it's quite limited, which is 4096, which is around 4 GB of a memory. Again, when you are saying that you are purchasing a BTP product license, this will depend on the pack, or I can say on the subscription mode that you would have chosen. Okay, so there definitely this limit won't be quite let's just say reaching. Instead, you will have got a good amount of limit that you will be able to utilize for that. So when we are talking about those limits, so for example, if you just go into the entitlement right over here, entitlement are nothing but the things that you are entitled for, the things that you can use. So for example, if you are willing to do some ABAP development, that ABAP trial environment, or I can say runtime ABAP environment, has been assigned to your account only one unit. It means in your account, you can have one ABAP environment subscribed for, and you can connect to that only centrally. But in case of a real environment, this quota will exceed, because this account was meant for trial. So they just gave one quota free of charge. Others, if you would like to, you might have to pay for it. Same, the one which we are talking about over here, Cloud Foundry environment, it says 4 unit, and 1 unit is of worth 1 GB. Okay, and that's the reason you will say that currently the 4 unit is ultimately giving you around 4 GB of the quota. So for example, if you are saying that no, I do not want my Cloud Foundry environment to be available in only one sub account, rather in my trial as well, or in real account, you might have, let's just say, got X number of unit. You would like to configure it half into different sub account. You can still go ahead and configure it, and you would say that okay, I have 4. I'll just say I would need 2 over here. You will save that, and the other 2 quota you can use it in the other one as well. But ideally 4 is the minimum thing that ideally would be required in order for your application to work smoothly. But these are called quotas. Quota as in the things that you would need in order for your application to work in a smoother way. Another thing could be your HANA account, HANA Cloud, that is a database, right? SAP HANA Cloud DB. So your SAP HANA Cloud DB, you have also got one instance of each. And now all this one instance of each you will also need in order for your application to be deployed centrally. Okay, so that's something we should also be looking at. So these are called entitlements. You would see as and when we go with it, we are going to consume it. For example, we have assigned 4 unit of Cloud Foundry run time environment to my BTP. That's the reason you would see as if once this 4096 MB over here is assigned, you are left with 0, which you can assign going forward. Service marketplace over here gives you all the services belonging to different area, as we discussed into the last session, and instances and subscription ideally. So these are all the solution be relevant to application development, AI integration, and all the stuff. On top of it, when you say instances and subscription, out of the services which you are entitled to use, what all thing you have actually subscribed for. So for example, we are already having a Cloud Foundry environment set up. That's why you will see it in the environment, in the instances and subscription. Same way in the business application studio is one of the application we have already enabled, and that's the reason you will see it in the application in the subscription mode. Now, the Cloud Foundry that we are talking about, you would see that it is divided into so-called development spaces. Okay, so what happens is whenever you are developing any sort of application, you ideally develop, for example, when I say you can consider your global account as your organization, you can consider your sub account as your development environment, for example, development quality production. Within that, if you would like to do some sort of let's just say a split of saying I would like to have some development activity, or I can say actual application development activity somewhere. I would like to do some maintenance activity, or I can say some sort of a setup activity, some master data maintenance activity, some customizing activity in the terms of our legacy ABAP, if I would like to call it as, then you will divide it in the form of a spaces. Okay, that's what we can call it as a dev space. So those are divided. Ideally, in terms of a BTP, you would see most of the time you are working with one dev space where all the things are being deployed, because underlying data containers are divided. Okay. On top of it, the moment we say I would like to deploy or work on my UI application, you will ideally see those being worked upon, or I can say being deployed on your HTML5 application in the form of your different launchpad, be it build work zone, success factor, or cloud portal. In trial, you can subscribe for it. Mostly people subscribe for at least one flavor of it, so that they'll be able to view their application not only deployed as a URL, rather they'll be able to view the application in the form of a tile. So we are going to see this practically as well. We had one of the discussion into the earlier session saying how I can connect to my existing on-premise system if I do not want to discontinue them. Then you can connect them via the cloud connector over here. And after connecting them to cloud connector, in order for you to consume them, you will create so-called destination. So this is something we are also going to see practically into our sessions going forward. When it comes to security, each of the user are having a set of roles assigned in the form of a role collection. Role collection, you can connect, or I can say relate it to the PFCG roles what we used to have, and roles you can relate it to the SU0, I can say SU21 authorization object that used to be there. Those authorization objects are collected in the form of roles for the user. So I know if I am up, let's just say person on different role, what all activities I should be able to perform. So what all role collection I could have. So by standard, you can have different role collection. For example, destination setup. I could be a business application studio developer, sub account handler, different role I could have. Okay. So those all the things are also provided over here. And ideally, SAP gives you an idea of how much resources are you using depending on your application load, so that you know at end of the month or the cycle that you would have decided, the pay as you go plan, what you might end up paying. So this is what ideally sub account contains. But when it comes to your application development, all the applications that you are going to build and deploy, you will ideally see those working under the dev space over here in the form of a space over here under the dev over here. Okay, so when I say your global account over here is your organization, your cloud dev over here, which is nothing but your sub account is your development environment. Within the development environment, you will have one space saying, okay, I have my client number 100, 100, where I'll be deploying all my application. So the moment you say you are deploying your application can be nothing but your service, right? Some sort of a service, either creating to your database or something which is working on your application server. All those things will be deployed in the form of your service instances over here, and that's something you will be able to see over here in the dev mode. The moment I go inside, you will be able to see that here your service instance will start appearing, where you will be able to monitor those. Okay, what are the services which I do have, and if there are some issues. So for example, when I say I used to work on a backend OData service, if there are some certain errors, I can view them in the error log. I can view them into the dump ST22. All those things, all those monitoring, right, can be done via your application, and the instance is available over here. That's one of the thing. Okay. Plus, when I say I have a HANA Cloud DB, okay, my HANA Cloud DB where my database will be deployed. So in that case, earlier what we used to have is this SAP HANA Cloud, which is still there. But the idea is SAP is suggesting now to go with the multi-environment. So what is the point of having this single environment SAP HANA Cloud? And why SAP is now suggesting us to go with a multi-environment, and how we can configure those. That's something we will discuss today. And then maybe you can have members of those dev spaces and all. So kind of again a security architecture. So in last session, when we created a dev space, we also started figuring out certain components of a CAP, where we discuss the basic building blocks of a CAP, which when we say that, maybe we also mention that CAP ideally comes with a two flavor, Node.js and Java. We are going to discuss Node.js, but at the same point in time, our project over here, we created with so-called a terminal-based interface. In the terminal, we specified a keyword called CDS in it, and maybe we were able to specify, or I can say, create the project. So for example, when you say XYZ, your XYZ project will be created. Like we created BTP demo. Okay. Once we had that, maybe what we also understood is that after having that, you should be able to go with your database creation. So any of your service, as we discussed into our earlier session, any service that you are creating in any of the environment, right? In any of the environment, the things which are quite important, the things that will work for you is how well you are splitting your service in a way that can be consumed. Okay, so if I say I have got a very nice, let's just say, just okay, if I say I have got a very nice service over here, and I have got a nice set of a DB over here, which is containing some sort of a data. Now this particular DB, I'll be able to consume in a nicer way if I have exposed it in the form of some sort of an endpoint called service, so that my UI application over here can consume this easily, right? So ultimately, your UI over here can be can consume your application over here, which has been exposed in the form of a service, and this service will ultimately be able to will serve this service will ultimately be communicating to so-called your DB over here, right? So this communication that we are establishing has been divided, as you can see in the CAP project, in the form of a DB module, where you are defining what all database thing you have. Either the database thing is nothing but some sort of a data that you are talking about, can be divided into a table or a view or some sort of a structural data, and they are created in the form of a file with extension called data model.cds. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to go with one problem statement, a simple problem statement, and we are going to define an application based on that, a service endpoint based on that, and we'll see, okay, how that can be developed. Okay, once we are clear with that, then it would give us more idea on the working mechanism of a CAP module. Okay, so let's just say, let's just define a problem statement over here. My idea is that first technology stack which I would like to use is a CAP with Node.js. Whatever thing it takes in order for me to develop this application, we'll do that. Okay. Plus, problem statement could be that I should have some sort of a employee data. I would like to create an application exposed as an OData V2 and V4 service, which should allow me to maintain employees in different departments. This is my idea. This is the requirement that I do have. And I would like to create a simple application using which I should be able to create some sort of employees in different departments, right? If I would like to create such an application, if I would be you, what I'll do is I'll simply create something which are much needed for any application to work. For example, I can say some tables, right? So first thing I'll create is some tables, and in order for me to have these tables, I'll need, okay, what all tables I'll need? I'll need a employee table over here. I'll need some department table over here, right? On top of this table, I might need some sort of a service which I'll expose, Okay, so the service which I'll be exposing over here should have this two entity called employee and department again, but this should be ideally connected to the existing table, right? So I can say connected to existing tables. Plus, what we are also talking about is the way they can be exposed, right? So maybe you would have observed that the moment we created a service over here, right? And the moment we say, I would like to view how my service is working, if I just say cd btp be demo, I was and I also mentioned one of the command which allows you watching of how your service is behaving called cds watch. You would have seen that earlier it was connected to your in-memory database, and at the same point in time your OData v4 is the way using which your service was exposed, right? So this was the way with which your service was exposed in the form of a OData v4. Along with that, I want my application to be served in two different sort of an endpoint, OData v2 and OData v4. So I can say deployment strategy, or I can say deployment flavors. I would need a v2 and v4. V4 is available out of the box. I would like also v2 to be in place. Plus, when I say I would need both of them in place, my v4 should also keep on working. On top of that, I would also need, if possible, please enable, I can say one more capability, additional capability called draft handling, saying I would need some sort of a draft capability saying if my user is going over here and he's saying create an employee, he's writing something, he just came out, or let's just say there was some network issue, his work should be stored. So draft capability should also be given. These are the thing which I am looking for from my CAP application right now. Here we have still not mentioned the authorization part, right? That's something we'll discuss. My focus over here, or I can say the outcome of this particular application should be that we all should be clear of certain thing. First, saying how the CAP model work. Okay. Second, the capability of it, the one which we are seeing over here. Another one is how I can switch from my SQLite, which is just a development environment database, just to make you understand the thing. How I can switch from SQLite to my SAP HANA Cloud DB. This is the main idea of this particular example or the exercise that we are going to discuss. Okay, that's the main idea. That's the thing that we are going to understand. Now, in order for us to understand this, what we'll do is we'll start with the first step over here. Okay, we'll create a application which says, okay, I would like to create an application which contains my employees and department, and I would like to create some table. So first question that will come to your mind, or first question that anyway come to your any interview that you are giving for CAP applications is how to create a table. Okay, which maybe we have done in the earlier session, but it's just a syntax that you would have learned right till now. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say clear this, and I'll just simply say I would like to go in my project folder. So I just a cd space dot dot. These are all your terminal command. Maybe we would have used it thousands of times. I'll just say cds in it, and I would like to create some btp be and employee. Okay, I'll just create some service for that. And I'll just simply say BTP BE EMP, and I'll just keep on watching the things which are going on. That's the reason I just wrote CDS watch. Okay. So currently what we see is it does not have any model, which means it does not have any database. We'll create that, and it's in memory. We are also planning to switch this to my let's just say so-called HANA DB. Sorry, how was that?
Yeah, HANA DB. No.
Yeah, Anil. Okay. Okay, so now the idea is when we are saying we would like to create a table, our first step towards the solution. We would like to create a table. All the artifacts that we are going to develop over here on the perspective of a database should be in the form of a .cds. I'll just create a new file. I'll create some sort of a DB. So as I am going with an employee, I'll just say employee DB model. I can name it anything. Earlier, I name it as a data model. Here, I'm saying employee DB model. Because in an application, if I have some sort of a transactional table I am creating some views, I am creating some, let's just say master data, everything should be in a CDS file. I can have n number of CDS files, so you can name it accordingly depending on your use case. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll say that I would like to create some sort of tables. Okay, that brings us to the very first point. Okay, saying in case of CDS, okay, this is called CDS basics. This is what we should all be focusing on. What all thing ideally comes when you say CDS, core data services. Okay, in case of a core data services, things are ideally divided in a way that can give your capability to your application. One thing is when you say I would like to define a table, one thing you should be knowing is in terms of a CAP or in terms of a CAP CDS views, entity keyword is the master keyword that helps you creating anything you want. Okay, so entity is the keyword that we are going to use. First keyword, or I can say first thing that we are talking about over here is that I would like to create a table. We'll say, okay, which table? I'll just say employee, for example, over here. And when you say I would like to create some employee over here, you would need, for example, employee and its set of properties. All right, that's one. So like you used to create database table anywhere where you used to specify table name and column and other things. For example, it's label, whether it's a primary key or foreign key or XYZ, all those things ideally should be contained over here. Okay. So all those things that you are talking about ideally should go from here. On top of it, the constraints. So for example, whether I would like to specify certain thing if they are mandatory. Okay, so I would like to specify whether the things are mandatory, or let's just say if I would like to specify that value of, let's just say, department should I be ideally a SAP or a non-SAP or IT or a mechanical, anything. So those all the possible values that you would like to specify in the form of a range, those all the things ideally come in the form of some assert. We are going to have a separate session on this. We are going to now develop a simple table which can store the data for us. Okay. Another one is when you are developing anything in the terms of let's just say ABAP, in terms of a customer development, you ideally have got just the thing called some sort of a namespace. That customer namespace are ideally either a Z or a Y. Okay. In terms of CAP, that's not limited. You can develop anything in a namespace that you want, and that namespace ideally is something that you will specify over here on the top with a keyword called namespace. So that tomorrow when my table gets created, the name of it employee will not be just employee, it will be the name I say. So for example, I am saying I am developing an application for my employee. So I'll just say employee.app. I can give any name I want. Okay, so I'll just say employee.app, which is going to have a table called employee, which can have n number of columns. Okay, so for example, when I say I have an employee, I can have some name of that employee. So I'll just simply say a string of 255. So a table's name, column name, and the database I'm talking about over here. On top of it, in SO11, we used to specify some sort of a label for it that's called so-called title. So you can specify some sort of a title over here in the form of some sort of a let's just say title keyword. But how you can specify that, where you should specify that in a nicer way, that's something we are going to come. But here, one thing you should be quite clear about is that title or anything that you are specifying should be supported, or I can say should be specified with a keyword, or I can say with a specific CDS capability called annotations. Okay, so annotations, what is the annotation? Okay, so annotations are nothing but certain thing. Okay, let me just give a definition for annotation. So annotations are something in a technical syntactical perspective, I can say anything that starts with at the rate. Okay. Or I can say annotations are ideally specified with so-called keyword, which ideally begins with at the rate. So for example, if I would like to give title, I'll just say at the rate title. If I would like to give some value help, I'll just say at the rate value help. If I would like to make certain thing mandatory, I'll just say at the rate mandatory. Okay. So if I would like to create a column, maybe I'll just say at the rate and something, whatever is there for column. I mean, column is not a valid annotation, but anything, any annotation that is capable of generating a column will ideally give that. So this is what we ideally call it as an annotation. So this is something will come into picture. Many people specify it over here as well, but I'll tell you what is the right place to do that, where we should ideally be specifying that. So we say that I am creating a table. It's a name of it. It's a email ID of it. Okay, and this email ID, for example, I'll say it's also going to be 255, and maybe let's just say department over here, which is also going to be there, and I'll just call it as a, let's just say again, string 30 characters. On top of it, okay, I would also like to recognize or identify my employee uniquely. Okay, for that, there are multiple ways. Either I can define some key parameter over here on top, saying key ID over here, and I'll just simply say it's string 30 character or 36 character, anything random. But what happens when you visually say that my application is running over here? Okay, my application is running over here, and someone is trying to create some sort of an employee over here by saying create button. The moment they click on create button, definitely another page will open over here, which will ultimately ask them for some input parameter saying, please enter the name of an employee, please enter the email ID of an employee who you would like to enroll some sort of a, let's just say, department where he or she belongs to, right? Now, when you are saying this, ideally, you would expect that all the things he or she will enter, but the employee ID, or I can say something which can uniquely identify your record. Forget about employee, any document, any record that's being created, you would need that this record should be unique. If you ask your end user to enter this, he or she might mess up with this, and the things you are, let's just say, trying to enter into database might be duplicate, you might get some error, right? And that's the reason what we'll do is this employee ID can be something that can be over here, which you can create as a key like this. There is one way of doing that. Okay, here you have to write some logic in Node.js to generate this ID dynamically. This will be our on our own. Okay. In order for us to make the things more simple, consider a scenario where I would like to create an employee and system generates that dynamically. So you would have heard of so-called GUID, which ideally is unique, created based on your time and everything. Those things ideally gets generated automatically, and anything which has got certain capabilities saying, okay, I would like a key that can get generated automatically. I would like to generate some let's just say additional column which says, okay, when my record was created, when my record was changed, all those things are given automatically as a built-in capabilities in the form of a so-called aspects. Okay, so I'll just move this theory from here to somewhere below so there is more readable. What we are talking about now is aspect. Okay, what is aspect? Aspect is anything which has been defined as a reusable entity block. Okay, why I'm saying reusable entity block? So for example, I have one entity called employee over here. Let's just say I would like to also create one employee entity over here called department. Okay, Now, when I'm saying I'm creating one more entity, and my department may also have some name, so I'll just say string 255, for example. Now, I would like to create some key parameter over here in my employee table, which can uniquely identify my employee. I would like to create some key parameter over here in my department, which can uniquely identify my department. Okay. Now, when we would like to do that, ideally, we would like to give some unique ID to it. I can have 1,000 department. I can have just 3 department in my organization. That might vary. Same goes for employees. So if I'm writing a single logic, or I can say single key combination called ID, if I can generalize it in a way that the moment I specify that, the purpose of it is to give the key generation. The moment I specify something which is reusable, ideally should add the capability saying a key will get generated. Okay, so there can be one aspect for ID key generation. There can be another aspect saying to maintain, let's just say who and when created or change the things, the record, some sort of a created by, modified by, all the things. Same way in your organization as well, you can have certain thing which you might ideally add in multiple places, or I can say at multiple places. You can think it as of your include structures. When you have include structure, you ideally create in terms of an ABAP, which you can plug at multiple places. So for example, when you are extending certain thing, and those things which ideally will start appearing in different structures and table, even though you have defined it once, you have just included those at multiple places, right? Those things are called reusable aspects. Okay, when you would like to use those, there are two ways. Either use those, or first, before using this, I can say create aspects. How we can create aspects, that's something we are going to see in the follow-up session. But there are certain standard aspects as well given. For example, to create an ID, to create a, let's just say a person who created and maintained those records. For that, you will use a keyword called using. Anything that you would like to use, you will ideally go with keyword called using. There is a package at the rate SAP CDS common. These are mainly for commonly used packages, or commonly used aspects, and commonly used CDS terms. So I'll just say in CAP, for example, if you just say that, you will ideally be navigated to common types and aspects over here, which gives you an idea saying there can be different aspects. So for example, you would like to use CUID. Is one of the aspect whose purpose is to generate a unique ID. There can be a manage aspect which says that if I have a record over here, then if I add a managed over here, then by default it will add these 4 columns. So this, each of this keyword is nothing but an aspect which internally is containing those columns, and those columns will ideally be included in your DB table. And it has a capability, as you can see, it has got certain thing which starts with annotation, which says that the moment you create a record, if the operation of a CDS is an insert, the current timestamp should be added in the column called created at. If the person is inserting the record, the current user over here should be added in the form of a user of the record being created. Same goes for modify as well. So these are the things which are called aspects. Now we can use it if I just say I would like to use CUID, I would like to use manage, and then I'll say I would like to use this particular columns into my entity. So if I would like to know, I would like to generate a key automatically. So I'll just simply say CUID. You have to specify colon after the entity, and you will specify it like this. Same way you have to specify another aspect, then you can specify it by separated by comma. If you want, you can have just one aspect. That's also okay. So for example, in department, I do not want to store who is the person who created or modified it. I can get rid of it. The place where I would like, I can specify multiple as well. Okay, that's one. But how this is going to work? So if I just click on control click over here, you would say that these are standard code. As you can see, these are standard code exposed in the form of a node module. And here you would find all those things which SAP would have defined. So I'll just simply say managed. As you can see, they have created it as called aspect managed. So anything that has been defined as an aspect like you can also define your own set of aspect, which will help you define same set of column into multiple entities, right? So by default, the moment we expose this as a service, you will see that this particular employee has not only got 3 columns, it has got one more column plus 4 more columns. So 4 plus 1 is 5 plus 3, 8 columns, out of which 5 are coming out of the box with the thing called aspects one has, it has been added. Okay, and it will also add the data by default. That's something we'll see practically the moment we add the record into it. Okay, now next thing we would like to know is, or I can say we would like to do is, this is going to create a table one for me, which is called employee. Another thing that it is going to create is another table called department, right? I would like to expose this thing in the form of a service, and it should have two entity called employee and department. So what I'll do is I'll just simply create another service. So I'll just simply create a service in the folder where a service ideally should go and sit in the SRV folder, right? And in this particular employee service, you would create a service. So for example, employee service.cds. Anything that you are writing in the cap, if they are going to generate CDS artifact, that the extension of it should be CDS. Primarily the data model and the service part of it, the extension of those files should be .cds. Okay, I'll just go over here and create a service. Okay, we have not seen the tables getting generated over here, but you will see it in a while when we actually build this. Okay, so any project into CAP ideally gives you the generated artifact when you build those. Okay, so we'll see how the things gets built and how the artifacts gets generated. We'll see it at that point in time. Okay, so I'll just simply say I would like to go with a service generation. So now what I would like to use, I would like to use whatever I have generated over here. So this is something we did in the last session as well. So I'll just say I would like to use my this one. I can name it as a EA from, let's just say where it is. It's in there in the parent folder. So I'll just simply say double dot for my parent, and it says in the DB you have employee DB, and this is something I am using. Okay, now comes the main thing. I would like to generate some sort of a service. Okay, what does it say? Mismatch identifier string. It just happened. Okay, and I would like to give it an alias. I can give a EA. Oh, maybe there was some special character or something. That's the reason it just failed, but it was the same thing. Okay, so we are connected to the thing. Those are defined over here. So I should be able to connect to this table. I would like to create two entities now. So what I would like to do, I would like to expose them as a service. So as you know, as I mentioned, I can have a database table which should be exposed as a service so that they can be consumed in a UI application. That's the main idea over here, right? So we have create table. Now I'll create a service, and a service ideally is nothing but if that's an OData service, right? That OData service ideally what it should have some sort of a service, and service will ideally have in the internally called entities, right? So I'll just say entity. Entity is nothing but any resource. So I'll just say employee service. And now what I was saying is that as a requirement, I would like to create a service endpoint called employee. So with this endpoint, if someone would like to create an employee, they will be able to trigger some create call onto my endpoint. So employee will get created. If someone would like to change an employee, they'll say change an employee and employee will be changed. So likewise, that can be done. So over here, what I'll do is I'll just simply say I would like to define some entity over here called employees, and I can name it as anything. I'll just simply say as select from, and here I'll just simply say EA dot, and I can see all the things which has been defined over here. So I'll just simply say employee. I'll just say entity over here, and I'll just simply say department, and I'll just simply say as select from my EA dot department. Okay, so it created two entities. So now if I just try opening this endpoint that just got generated, I'll just refresh this, or maybe there is an old one, and I'll open this in a new tab. Now I can see that my service metadata got generated. The moment I click on this, you would see that it has not only got name, email ID, and department, but the column that you all that you also added in the form of a aspect, CUID and manage, are also available. So I have ID, I have other 4 columns as well. These are called columns added via some sort of a include structure, some sort of a aspects. Same goes with the department. As we have also only added this, there is something that you can see. Okay. Now, what you would also be interested in doing is that I am interested in, let's just say, viewing the capability, saying, can I create employee out of this? So if I just click on this Fury preview, this is just a preview to, let's just say, ensure that, okay, you all are getting these things correctly. This is just a preview of the application. It does not necessarily mean that your uh, application is going to look like this. This is just to visualize the things in a better way. Okay. Now, currently it's empty. It has got setting over here. I can just go ahead and select certain column if I want, for example, name, email ID, department. I can view those as well. But they are kind of not available by default. But one thing you will see that the moment if I have such an application, if someone clicks on go, a backend call should be getting dispatched, and the same you will see over here in the console that someone is trying to read the employees column, department, email ID, and name. So all the relevant backend call of a read type are getting triggered over here. Okay, so it means whenever you are interacting with any such application, all the backend call that gets triggered will be dispatched onto the service, and your service over here will have a name called employees that will serve the purpose of it, because you are currently into the display mode of your employees entity. So which internally will select the data from your employee table and the data will be served. So this is how end-to-end connection or the communication is going to work. Okay, now let's just try to fine tune this thing. If I just refresh this, maybe we know that, okay, the things that we just added via personalization, right, are only for the time being, right? I can see that those things are anyway going away. I do not see those things available over here anymore. So what do we want? We want that the name over here, okay, which is nothing but in the setting called name, this does not look good. It's all in uppercase, looks bit, let's just say, unprofessional. I would like to have the things in a better way. That's where the keyword over here, as I mentioned, called annotation come into picture. Anything that you would like to give some enhanced capability, you ideally add so-called annotations on top of it. Okay, that's the one. Now, when you are saying you are going to add some sort of annotations on top of it, what you will do is you will add so-called annotation. There are two ways of adding it. One, I can say, I'll just show it to you right now over here. You have to add so-called at the rate, and then you can say all the annotations those are possible. Either you would like to give some sort of a common code list that can be added. Either you would like to give some UI behavior. If you would like to also give some sort of a title, you can also give that, saying, I would like to name this as a name over here. Now, the moment I did that, right, I'll just save this. And here I'll just go and I'll just simply check, saying, the moment I click on this one, you see now this just got converted to name over here. This one. Okay. Same way, there are different kind of cap annotations possible. There is a cap CDS based annotation possible. How can I figure that out? So what you can do is you can simply say SAP UI5 HANA on demand. These are standard one, right? And if you just go over here, for example, currently you are working on some sort of a list report, because that's what it looks like. It's a list report. You can say that I would like to view some sort of way to developing application with Fiori elements. And here I would like to define some list report. And if I just click on this, so for example, I would like to define some sort of columns. If I click on this, here you would see different things coming up. Okay, there are certain XML thing, certain thing which are coming up over here, which says that if you would like to handle some search capability over here, you can do that via, as you can see, cap CDS annotation. Okay, when I say cap annotation, it means if you are willing to have this capability which can handle the global search over here, then you can go with this restriction over here. If you would like to, let's just say, get some another capability. So what is this capability over here? There is a navigation, there is a freezing column. So let's just go with the simplest one. So for example, I'll just go over here back and I'll just click on this. So I would like to generate some filters on top of my application. If you are writing the code in XML, this is how you might have written that. If you are writing the code in ABAP, this is how you would have written that. But in case of a CAP, this is how you will write it. You will write saying, I would like to annotate something with, I would like to annotate something, okay, over here with, let's just say, there is a service name, there is an entity name with at the rate. At the rate, it means it's an annotation, and I would like to add some selection field. So the moment you do that, you will start seeing selection field or filters for that. Okay, if you would like to set some default values, this is how you can do that. Likewise, there are different annotations available. All are available in the SAP standard document kit. You will be able to use all those annotations. That's one. Okay, this is how you ideally get it. Now, let's just try to enrich this thing. So there is one place which I mentioned. Another place of doing this same thing is, so for example, as the documentation says, I'll just simply say, annotate, and maybe I'll try to annotate something. So for example, I'll just simply say employee service dot, maybe I would like to annotate my employee. Okay, and this particular employee, as you can see where we were over here, it says that there should be a keyword called with. So I'll just add a keyword called with, and then you can specify anything that you want over here in the form of this two brackets. Let me just close this and let's just reopen this since the system is a bit slow. Okay, so as you can see, it gives me an idea saying I can have an employee service where I can add n number of annotation. So this is the place between at the rate and bracket where you will add the annotation, which is round bracket. Then there are curly bracket where you will add the property level thing. Property level annotations, and this is called design level annotation. Okay, so for example, you just provided a thing called name should be named as a name over here. Now I am saying I would also like to have my email ID, and I would like to annotate it with so-called email ID over here. So I'll just say email ID. So these are the two places which ideally are used. The another option that we just choose right now ideally gives you the way to segregate the technical definition of it and the behavioral aspect of it, saying, okay, how I want the things to look alike. Okay, so the same thing will also work. Email ID has been set up over here, and I can see those things. But when you specify it with the keyword called annotate over here, you can easily split the things design. Rather than specifying everything over here, you can also specify it onto the annotation level. Okay, so we'll see how I can add the columns on top of it. This is the one thing which we are anyway going to do right now. But to understand where all at what all things, or I can say at what all places we can do, these are the ways for that. Okay, now I'll just simply say employees, I'll just simply say department as well, and I'll just give a title for that as well. Now, as I said, that there are certain annotation to define the UI behavior of your application. And now what was our requirement? So let's just also talk about the requirement over here. Okay, so it says that I would like to have a table. We created two tables. I would like to have a service. We created two service, a service with two entities. We would like to have a flavor of V2 and V4. Okay, so V4 is something which we see by default. V2 is something which is missing. But in order for us to view whether the records are getting created correctly or not, let's just try to add some behavior to it. So we are pretty sure that, okay, the things are working the way we expected. Okay. So what we'll do in that particular case, we'll simply try to give some UI behavior to it. Currently, it's quite empty. Let's just try to add some columns to it. So the moment I say I would like to add some columns so that I can view those. Okay. So like we have when I said I would like to add some filters here, what it says is you have to add where it was UI dot selection field. Selection field is for filters. Filters can be added with call UI dot selection field. Same way, if you would like to add some column, it's added via UI line item. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll simply go over here and I'll simply say that I would like to add something over here. I have written at the rate. So if I just simply say UI, you will see n number of things which are possible, right? Out of which I'll simply say I might end up adding multiple things. So I just simply say UI. And now what all thing you are suggesting? It says, would you like to have a line item? I'll say, yeah, I would need a line item. What all column you would like to expose by default. So I'll simply say, I would like to create a field which shows the data. If you would like to create a field which shows the action, you can also click create a button. Likewise, all the things are possible. Let's just go with a simplest scenario. I would like to create a just a thing which shows the data. So I'll just click on a data field over here. Okay. The moment I say, oh, one sec. I just found a message onto the group. I think Krishna is in, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay,
I
perfect.
got mail, but for only 3 December and 10 December, for no 9 December.
No, no, no.
So,
So, I mean,
okay,
it's a recurring series for all the sessions that will be the same
okay,
thing.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now if I would like to create a column, I'll just add data field and I'll simply say, okay, which column I would like to display. So first column I'm interested in displaying is, for example, called name. Okay, now I'll add another column over here. So all I'm doing over here is, okay, the code is not coming automatically. I'm just pressing enter. I'm just saying control space, which gives me the value help, and I am saying data field. In case of a CDS, in case of a business application studio, these are built in value helps, or I can say code completion already suggested. You can use those. I'll just say email ID and maybe let's just say I would also like to have some department. Plus, I would like to view the things. Who is the person who is created it, and who is the person who had, I mean, who is the person who created and when it was created. So now by default, I should be able to view those things over here. I'll just refresh. And now I should be able to view that thanks to my UI annotation over here, so-called at the rate, something, anything which is starting with at the rate is generating the code over here. And here I can see this data coming up over here, right? Plus, as you can see, delete button is coming automatically, but I do not see create button available yet. I do not see create button coming up yet. So what I'll see is that, okay, if I would like to have some create button also coming up, then we should be thinking about what we are working on. Okay, what are we working on? So let's just say if you just expand this right now, you would see that it's a OData V4 you are working on. Okay, now there are certain standard guidelines that's saying there are OData V2 and V4. OData V2 and V4 ideally goes with so-called capabilities. In V2, all the capabilities all are enabled by default. So when I say I'm creating a V2 endpoint, OData V2 endpoint, I can get create, update, delete out of the box. But when I say I'm creating a V4, it says, is your application draft enabled? Is your application is having a capability which can handle the draft? If I say yes, my application is having draft capability, then it will give all capability. If not, if it's not draft enabled, it will just give me a read capability, read or query, or I can say just read only features. Now, let's just say I would like to have some create, update, delete capability for V4. All I have to do is I'll just simply say @ because that's again a draft capability, which it's again an additional capability I am talking about. And any additional capability to the application is ideally given with so-called annotation. I'll just simply say OData draft enabled. So you are going to see use of annotation quite a many time during our application development with the CAP. That's something we all should uh, start understanding. So I am saying I am having a draft capability over here, and my application should start showing me the draft capable behavior. So that's the reason the moment you say you are having a draft capability, now you should be able to see a create button. Okay, because there is a standard documentation of a V4 which says any V4 application which does not have a draft capability does not give you the CRUD operation. Create, read, create, update, delete are not possible. It's only the read only application which you can create if it's a non-draft application. Okay, that's one. So what we were also able to achieve is we were able to create two tables. We were able to create some service. We were able to create a V4 with a draft capabilities also possible, because as you can see, we added a behavior called @OData draft enabled. Plus, as you can see, when you are seeing draft, what is a draft? Draft is something, for example, I am a user um, who just started creating an employee. Okay, and there was a power cut. I just added some data. For example, I added a name, I added an employee and email ID, and there was a power cut. So my work which I would have done should be stored somewhere. Should be stored somewhere. So those draft capability can possibility have some unsaved changes. I let's just say if I am a user, user number one, and there can be another user, user number two, I can have my own unsaved changes, and there can be another user who has his own unsaved changes as well. His own unsaved changes. There can be a document which I am working on right now, right? So there can be some record which I have locked, and there can be another user which another user has locked. All these things, all those possibility will come into picture when you talk about a draft enabled application. That's the reason you will see a editing status over here which says whether you would like to view all the record or the records over here which are unchanged. It means no one has worked on it, or the one which you just started working but are in a draft mode. Either you are creating it or you are editing something but you have not saved it finally. If you want to view something which are logged by another user, or there are some changes which are unsaved. There is something which is a basics of a draft capability. We haven't jumped too much deeper into the cap yet. These are all the concepts of OData V2, OData V4 that you will see that this is something that you are going to live with going forward in the future development, whenever or wherever you are going to work with a new technologies. Plus, in CAP as well, maybe it marks your step one where you should be knowing this as well. Okay, so we were able to generate OData V4. We were able to add the draft handling as well. We haven't created a record yet. We can do that as well to view whether the record is getting created. So let's just do that as well. That's also something which should be quite simple. Okay, we'll do that so that you get a better idea of it, and post which what we'll do is we'll add a V2 flavors to it as well. Okay, how a OData V2 endpoint can be generated, because when I say OData V2 endpoint, you would have seen that if I just go over here, I am just getting one endpoint in my service called OData V4 employees. I do not have an endpoint which says OData V2. Right, so I will need something which is of V2 flavor as well, because I can have multiple consuming party. right? As maybe when we were discussing, we were also discussing of the fact that I can have certain let's just say use cases. I can have certain parties which will consume the OData service which I am generating. I can give my OData service to my Fiori team who can consume that and create a Fiori application. I can give my endpoint to a API party, or let's just somewhere where it is having its own set of UI, but internally they are invoking my OData service. So API based consumption, there can be Fiori based, someone would consume OData V2, someone would consume OData V4. So all those things are possible, right? So that's the reason we are going to go with this. That's one. Okay, now I would like to create a record. So I'll just simply say create. The moment I create this, you will see that currently I am getting just empty information with just a GUID that it just created. And that too, the important thing is it just also created this. How did it do that? Because it knows that this particular record is going to be created onto the DB. You have got a specs over here called CUID, which is capable of generating some key parameter by itself. That's the reason you are able to see that. But I do not see anything over here other than that, right? But I would like to have that. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say I would like to add something onto my Fiori application, and I'll just simply say I would like to define some object page, and I would like to build some sort of a general information over here. So when I say I would like to build some sort of a thing in the form of a group, the moment I clicked on that, it says you have to add UI.facet in this form. You can reference something which is nothing but a field group. So I can create a field group over here, reference it in the form of a facet, and I should be able to view those things appearing. Okay, that's my expectation. So let's just go over here. Let's just try to discard this ones, and I'll just simply go ahead and add those things as well here. So here, this is my UI. I added a line item because I would like to have some columns. Now, what I would need to have is I would like to have some facets, or I can say some sort of a group data open for end user to enter. This is something which I need, right? So what I'll do is I'll just simply say if it's a UI, I would like to create a facet. Facet will be consumed in the form of a field group. So I'll just simply say I would like to have some field group which should have multiple set of a data, and this data should have a data field. And here you will ultimately add the things that you had. So for example, I'm creating one field group which can contain basic information of it. So I'll just simply say name. I'll just simply say some sort of an email ID I would also like to add, and I would also like to add some sort of a department to it. Okay, same way, this another field group can also be there. Then I would like to define this one as a unique one. So I'll just say this is nothing but my basic data. Okay, same way, I'll create another one which says that, okay, there is another field group where my admin data. So for example, who is the person who created and who is the person who is going to change, all those things are going to stay. So I'll just simply say who is the person who created it, when it was created, and when it was modified. Sorry, I can say who modified it and when it was modified. Okay, and now all these things I would like to club in the form of a facet so it's visible. That's one which I just shown you over here, right, in the form of a facet in this documentation. So I would like to add some facet which can reference something, and I would like to reference what? First, I would like to show some basic data. Then I would like to reference some sort of admin data. When I say I'm referring, when I say I'm referring my basic data over here, I would like to add some sort of a label to it called this is my general information, for example. Okay, I'll sorry, put all of us on a mute for a while so that there is no disturbance. Maybe in case you have any doubt, maybe you can unmute at that point in time, not an issue. I'll just say label, and here maybe we'll add a label for, let's just say admin data. Okay, and we'll give some ID to uniquely identify it. I can say ID for my basic data and ID for my maybe there was a comma missing. ID for my admin data. Okay. Now, as we have created this, let's see, okay, how my application just starts looking alike. I'll just refresh this. I'll click on employees. As we can see, we have got this thing. I'll click on create, and we have got all these things appearing by following the documentation we just found over here. It just says that if you would like to create some sort of a facet, you have to ultimately link the label to it, ID to it, and some sort of a facet which you would like to refer it using UI field group general information. That's what we did. Right now, I would like to create an employee. So let's just create an employee call Rahul, right? And his mail ID, for example, Rahul at the rate eduoceans.com, and maybe I'll just say department SAP technical. Now, the moment I created this, as you can see, this says it's draft updated. If I create this, it should also create and record. As we don't have a authorization security concepts in place, it says anonymous. It means my system still doesn't know who created this record. So we are also going to come at this when we understand the security concept that it should identify a current user. Till the time you don't have a security concept, you will always see that you are getting anonymous. Anonymous in terms of a BTP is an unidentified user. Okay. And it says this is the time when it was created at 10:21. If you just change this, you will also see the record also getting updated. Okay. So I'll just simply say edu osh and I'll save this. And as you can see, this record got updated, but this created never got changed. And if I just go back, I should also be able to view this information without me writing any line of code in the Node.js and all. And it's just give me a UI behavior as well with the line of code that you just show over here with draft enable capability. So let's just reiterate. We created two tables. We created certain services and the endpoints of it. We created a V4 flavor and we are getting a draft handling capabilities as well. And my application is now capable of generating the record. But here is the trick. When we say we got all this thing, right? Now, for example, consider I am saying this admin data over here, or let's just say general information as let's just say I'm renaming it to anything, right? I'm just simply saying basic data. Let's just save this. Okay. Application will be refreshed and data is gone. I don't have any data. Why? Because here comes the concept called database that you are connected to is an in-memory database. Okay, which is a data. The database over here is an in-memory database that has all the data stored in memory. Till the time you are going in the same session, that's fine. The moment you say your service is going to get restart, the moment you change something, your service will get restarted, right? And as your service gets restarted, your data is gone. Now, this is not what we want for application which my end user is going to use. The UI behavior is fine, draft capability is fine, but this in-memory thing looks good for a better performance and maybe for data retrieval and all. But when it comes to a storage, it would be good if some database is there which can give me a in-memory capability so that data retrieval is fast. At the same point in time, data should also be persistent. I should not be in a position where my data is getting lost again and again the moment I do one line of code change. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare for me because my client is going to bombard on me the moment his data is getting lost. Right? That's one. So what we are now planning to do is, as you can see, we should be seeing how the CAP model works. Maybe we are a bit clear on the things that, okay, the things are connected in a way that creates a record onto the DB. OData architecture is also connected. So CAP model works, but we should be switching it from a normal SQLite in-memory database to the SAP HANA cloud. That's the purpose. That's something that we will be learning, and we are going to spend some time today onto that. Plus, the V2 flavor of OData. Why I have kept this over here? To understand certain things which are quite important when you are working with a Node.js. That's the reason we have it over here. So I'll just let's just say now today we are going to focus on two important aspects: how multiple endpoint capabilities V4 V2 can be granted, and what it has to do with a basic CAPM Node.js concepts. Plus, when you say SQLite, how you can switch it to SAP HANA Cloud, what all things we'll be doing on BTP so that my HANA Cloud can even be configured. That's the one which we are going to go with. Before that, anyone is having any doubt on any of the CAPM concepts? Okay, so basic terminology regarding the entity and the services and the annotate. The annotations are anyway going to get reiterated again and again during all the sessions, but we should be clear about the basic building blocks of CAP, because there are plenty of sessions which are left. We are going to go through all of this, but anyone having any doubt on the things that we have covered so far? Okay, so it seems we all are clear. Okay, now, so let's just move forward. Now, let's just go over here, and what we see is that I have a CAP project. Now, let's just again go into the project development mode. Okay, so when you are going to the project, I have a project which has got multiple things. The things work only because it has got something which are given to it in the form of a package. It says that I have got a dependency. By default, OData service using CAP, which is generated, gives you a V4 flavor. If you would like to get additional capability, okay, so the question is about additional capabilities. Question is about additional capability. So when you say additional capability is the question for you. Now this particular additional capability will be given in the form of a CDS properties, or I can say service, that can be given in the form of some sort of an annotation. We understood how I can give some labels, how I can design certain thing. All those things are given. Any additional thing, even the draft capability was given in the form of an annotation, right? But working model of my application ideally depends on the Node.js packages. So I can say working flow of my app depends on, I can say, Node.js packages installed. So our idea over here is, if there is any way with the help of which my V4 service over here can be converted to V2. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll try to look for some Node.js package which can help me convert my V4 OData service into V2. So I'll just say convert V4 CAP OData service into V2 using Node.js package. Okay, so it says how to generate OData V2. Okay, and it just has got multiple packages. As you can see, it has got a Node.js link, npm.js. So always prefer the link which are coming from a Node.js, npm.js, because our whole project is going to work based on Node.js capability. So any link that you are going over here, which is having npm.js, focus, or I can say spend time on it first. So it says that @SAP OData V2 adapter proxy. This is a package that you will need, but how will you install it, right? So I'll need this package. Currently, it has got just, let's just say, 2 package. It does not mean I'll just simply go over here and add a comma and I'll add it. So ideally, this is a project which is a generated one. Okay, ideally, I should not write much thing until and unless it's hard and fast or required in the package.json. It says there is a package. It exposes a full-fledged OData V2, converting an OData V2 request to OData V4 and response back with the V2. Okay, now what does it mean? It says that whenever someone is trying to reach my service with V2, it will convert it into V4 because my CAP service in Node.js understand only V4. Once it has got the response, it again converted back to V2 because the caller has requested with V2. So this internal conversion or proxy works, right? In order for us to do that, what it says is you have to install this package by saying npm install this. The moment you do that, you have to add a new file called server.js in the srv folder under this path and add this code, because what it is going to do, it is going to add a proxy so that your server also starts serving not only OData v2. So the moment you run this, it will serve OData v4, plus it will also support OData v2 by default. That's the main idea, right? So what is something that we are going to do? So let's just simply say npm install over here. We are going to add this. Now, in order for us to install any package, this is one package, okay? This is just one package that we are installing OData v2 proxy. Any package that you are willing to install for some or another requirement. Our first requirement, for example, is to let's just say have a v2 conversion. My another requirement could be, my another requirement over here could be saying I would like to let's just say connect to my Azure storage. Right now, who is the provider of Azure? Let's just say I can say Microsoft has provided me the Azure services. Right? Microsoft is the provider. So if Microsoft has created Azure, they would have created some API saying, if you can call this API, I'll give you the service that you are looking for. So ideally, provider provides some open source API. Provider provides some open source API. Okay. And if you are willing to use those open source API, what you can do is you can just consume those API by adding those packages, and then you will be able to call those packages. So for example, if I am the one who has created some reusable package. So for example, you are creating something and you can expose them as some open source packages. Someone, once they install it and in their code, they'll be able to utilize the services that you are providing. Right? So for example, I have created a DB store. Okay, so for example, I have created a, okay, so for example, I am providing some chatbot saying you can ask this chatbot anything and he'll that particular chatbot will respond. Okay, that's a standalone one. Now there is someone who is XYZ person building an API, building an application, and they want to have this chatbot capability over here. So I would have exposed this in the form of a Node.js package. So what they'll do is they'll simply say that I would like to have this chatbot capability. So they'll install my package saying npm install, and they'll add the package that I need. Now, when I created a chatbot, I would have created some public methods. So once you say I am installing one package, you should be able to call the public method of it after creating an instance. So this is something that will come into picture when we go hardcore into Node.js coding. But this is something we are going to learn. But currently, for this particular proxy, system has already given us some pre-built code. So what it is also doing, it says that you install this package. After you install this package, write this code. Now what it is doing, it is saying that this package that you are getting, let's just create an instance of it. So it is importing this package, and then it is doing something on top of this proxy. It is calling the proxy function, as you can see over here, which is calling this function, and it is internally changing the way the service behaves. Because the one, or I can say whoever has written this proxy function would have written something within this proxy function which is being invoked over here. And this particular thing internally is doing the tweak to convert the request and response between v4 and v2. That transition is happening over there. Okay, so that's the reason what we'll do is we'll install this package. Any package you are willing to install, always do this. Always let's just say npm install and add the name of the package. Okay, so I'll just copy this, and here I'll simply say npm install, and I'll add this. I'll allow the clipboard. Okay, enter. Okay, once I have done that, as you can see now, my project is dependent on this as well. Okay, and there is a current version which has been released, it has an upper arrow saying if there is any latest package over and above that, then it will also keep your project upgraded next time when you install the package. Okay, now I have got this particular package. Oh, maybe here. Yeah, I have got this particular package. Once I have got this package, next thing I should be doing over here is I should be anyway follow the documentation. It says that you have to create a file called server.js over here. I'll add this. Okay, and it asked me to add this pre-built code. So this is the first and maybe the last time when we are copy pasting something which is needed for the package. The rest, all the Node.js code line we'll be writing on our own because there is a API, so we have to follow the step that they ideally say. But now, the moment we have done that, we have just added a package, we have added this dependency. Now let's just try to again watch the service, how it works. As you can see, it says that along with this, it just created a proxy rewrite rule with v2. Okay, and now if I just open this in a new tab, as you can see, I have got OData v4. So if I click on this, I should be able to view my OData v4 over here, which says OData version is 4.0. Plus, if I just click on this, I should also be able to see that my OData version 2.0 is also there. So I have got two OData services with the same set of data employee and the department being served in two different versions thanks to just one Node.js packages. Okay, so what was the purpose of our requiring converting OData v4 to v2? To show you the capability of an open source library, how open source library are going to play a key role when it comes to let's just say CAP projects. This is one of them. Just with one package, they are able to convert OData v4 service into v2. This is one. Okay, this is one of the important thing that we just understood. Another important thing, or I can say the most important thing that we are now going to learn is switching from SQLite to SAP HANA Cloud DB. Okay, that's something that will need some of the groundwork. That's something we are going to do right now. Okay, now what we see over here is there is a development dependency says SQLite. One thing is pretty clear. Anything that I need in my project that should to work, okay, should be available in the form of some packages. Do I have some package over here which says HANA database? No. So what all thing we might be missing? First thing we should need is a HANA DB dependency. Correct? Now, when I say I need a HANA DB dependency, what it would be? It would be nothing but some sort of a Node.js package return, which would be calling some internal API to work on Node.js. So there can be one or two or n number of HANA DB packages. That's one. Second, when I say I would like to write some OData v2 proxy, there will be some OData v2 proxy server running on so that it serves the purpose of converting my services from v4 to v2 or v2 to v4, right? How about HANA database? HANA database is something which has been provided by SAP. We are currently working on BTP. BTP is also provided by SAP, which should have some sort of a HANA database available, right? And if we are saying that we would like to have some sort of a HANA database working, then we will need some running instance of a HANA, right? So for example, I'll just simply sign in again. My session has expired. When we say I would like to use a business application studio, what did I do? I created a service instance for that. That's there in my subscription pack, right? That's the reason I'm able to use that. Now I am saying I would like to use my HANA database. Okay, let's just say in the dev DB space, I was showing you this, saying in my SAP HANA Cloud, is my SAP HANA Cloud database instance. Do I have an instance? Have I created one HANA database? No, it's not there, right? Another one could be that do I have it available in my instances and subscription over here? No, it just have Business Application Studio and Cloud Foundry runtime. So if I don't have a HANA Cloud database instance running, definitely if I try to connect to my HANA DB, it's going to fail, right? So the groundwork that we are talking about is, in order for my HANA DB dependency to work, I'll need a running HANA DB instance on BTP. Okay, so here comes the concept of HANA DB instance. So let's just understand this. So for example, there are two things to it. We are going to create a HANA DB instance. Before that, let's just also say what are the legacy, or I can say what are the way those which were being followed few days back. I can say a few months back. What you are currently going, or I can say where are you currently navigating is, you are in your global account, you have a sub account, your sub account is having different runtime, Cloud Foundry runtime, Schema runtime. In your Cloud Foundry runtime, where your all the applications are going to get deployed, you have got a dev space. So it means within the Cloud Foundry, you have got a dev space, right? So it's part of your Cloud Foundry environment. Schema does not have anything to do with it, correct? And within this Cloud Foundry, you have got SAP HANA Cloud. It means the HANA Cloud DB that you might create from here will be related to what? Will be related to only your Cloud Foundry environment. So it says the Cloud Foundry edition of SAP HANA Cloud Central is not suggested because it's deprecated. The multi-environment edition of this Cloud Central is recommended way to go with. Okay, that's something you should follow. And there are some standard instruction which has been given. If you want, you can open that as well. It says what are the steps that you are willing to follow. But for that, let's just first understand what it is talking about. Okay, so for example, I'll just simply say, I'll just go in this one. I'll say that there can be few things. Either, okay, let's just understand this. Any application that you are running has got a runtime. Okay, has got certain runtime environment. Has got certain runtime environment. Now this runtime environment that it has got can be ideally Cloud Foundry, can be Schema runtime as well. So these are two different internal API which works on how your resources can be consumed. So as we are going to deploy our service on Cloud Foundry today, or I can say that's the main focus of which we'll have during our training. Consider you created a DB, a database over here, okay, and which works directly with the Cloud Foundry, okay, which works with the Cloud Foundry over here. So it's directly connected to it. Okay, and it's going to work on this, and that's the reason you will say that the database that you are going to create should be within this particular Cloud Foundry. So within the Cloud Foundry itself, you are creating a DB. So this is your HANA DB, or I can say HANA Cloud instance, which is quite private to this Cloud Foundry. Tomorrow, let's just say there is a need for you to start working on certain service which Schema will support because of some capability which maybe Schema will be giving, right? So then there will be another runtime. Then there will be another runtime called Schema. Any runtime means the underlying API support which says, okay, how your service is going to work. Okay. So tomorrow, let's just say there is a need to work on Schema, but this HANA DB that you created is specifically applicable, or I can say created within your Cloud Foundry. So if you start creating one more service, there are two services which are running on Cloud Foundry. One you start creating on Schema, it won't be able to use the data that you created within the Cloud Foundry because it's private to it, right? Rather, if we can create something over here, which is a centralized DB, and there is something called Cloud Foundry over here. Okay, and there is something called, let's just say Schema over here. Okay, there is something called Schema over here. You create something in a way that this particular two runtime environment, whichever are available over here, whichever is available over here, if both can communicate directly over here, to this, saying this particular HANA Cloud DB, okay, so this particular HANA Cloud DB, whichever is available over here, can directly communicate to this one. Okay, so when someone is some Cloud Foundry service is going to add some data, it will be placed over here. If Kaima service is also willing to work on that, they can also work on this. They can read, write any data they want. DB will be central. So there are more than one runtime environment. Cloud Foundry, Kaima, tomorrow there can be Kubernetes, there can be n number of runtime environments who is going to work on centralized DB instance. This is called multi-environment SAP HANA Cloud instance. This is called single HANA Cloud Central specific to Cloud Foundry. Now, if you read the error, it says the multi-environment edition of HANA Cloud Central is the recommended way of going. Reason is tomorrow, if you are willing to switch the environment or if you are working on multiple environment at a time, your centralized DB instance can still be connected to. Okay, that's the main idea behind this. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just simply go over here and we'll create a DB instance. I could have created it from here, but it would become this particular situation, this particular scenario, which won't be recommended because then you won't be able to use it outside. Okay, so rather we won't use this. Instead, we'll go back over here. Okay, and as the documentation over here suggests, there is a standard documentation. You will see navigated via your BTP. You will go in your instances and subscription, and you will create a sorry, my bad. You will go in the service marketplace, and you will create a subscription for your HANA Cloud. This is a HANA Cloud, a single gateway for all your data. Okay, you will click on create, and you will create a tool setup for that. A tool setup. So you see the tool setup over here. There is something that you will create that will create a subscription for it. The moment you create this, this is going to work for you to create, or I can say work on any sort of a such data. So as you can see, you got SAP HANA Cloud over here. Okay. Now, when you say you got SAP HANA Cloud over here, next step for you is to open the application, work on that. But this is an application. You got a subscription, which has got its own set of privileges. In order for you to use that in the security over here in the user, you would see the moment you subscribe for something, you would have got some sort of a roles for that. You have to ensure that those roles are assigned to the person who is going to work on it. So as you can see in the morning, we said it was having just destination administrator missing. We say HANA Cloud Administrator Security or all these things. So if you are just a viewer, you will need just this role. So once you have your admin person using this, you might not get all the access. But as I am the admin right now, I am the developer, I am assigning all of this to mine. So I can work on the HANA Cloud instance, create it. So I'll just go over here, instances and subscription. And here what I'll do is I'll just simply go in the SAP HANA Cloud. You can open this and you can go to the application, which opens your SAP HANA Cloud Central Dev Space. That's something that you can use for your all the HANA Cloud setup. Okay, so as you can see, I am now within the SAP HANA Cloud Central, which manages all my HANA database instances, out of which you have to create one more, or I can say you have to create one HANA DB instance. Once the HANA database instance has been created, then only you will be able to switch your application from your SQLite in-memory database to the HANA Cloud database, which is going to work onto the cloud. So I'll just click on this create instance over here. And as you can see, it has got me two flavors. Okay, it says if you are willing to create a database which provides an in-memory as well as multi-model database system to store, analyze relational data. Relation, it means in the form of a table. Maybe you would have heard in the when we were studying as well, there were a few days where we call it as a RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, which creates a table. Relation is nothing but a table. So if you would like to create certain thing in the form of a table, you will go with SAP HANA Cloud. If you would like to go with some file management, or I can say some sort of structured, semi-structured, some sort of analytical activity, you can go with HANA Lake as well. We are over here to work on a application development, which ideally is linked to SAP HANA Cloud. So I'll just go ahead and click on next. Now you can give any name to it. So for example, I'll just simply say my HANA DB instance. And here if you want, you can give some name, otherwise that's okay. The administrator's username over here will always going to be db admin. Okay, so if you want, you can just keep it somewhere, so maybe you do not forget it. So for example, I'll just simply say HDB admin user. I'll just simply say this one, and maybe we can just simply create some password for it as well. I'll just say uh, my DB admin 123. Oh, sorry, what is that? Does not contain contain. Okay, I can say edu admin. No, let's just say edu db at the rate 123. Okay, I'll just save that as well. So tomorrow, let's just if you would like to use that, we can use that as well. I'll just say password edu admin at the rate 123. I'll just say edu db. Oh, what did just happen? Okay, maybe we have to remove the admin word. That's a forbidden one. Okay, so I have created a password. I'll just go next. And now you are having a SAP HANA database, which it is asking you to view. So here, as you can see, it says that what it will give you 120 GB of a storage where you can store your data in the form of a tables. Plus in memory capability, it's also going to give 30 GB. It means there will be 30 GB of RAM, which will store your data in the memory, so it can give your transactions result on the fly. So it's almost 1:15 ratio. Now you can simply, let's just say, correlate why HANA database is called in-memory database, because the RAM size, the in-memory capability that it has got is 30 GB against the 120 GB of physical storage, which is too huge for any database to respond. That's the reason HANA database is quite expensive. At the same point in time, it's quite quick, right? So I'll just simply go next over here. And this is mainly ideally for any sort of basis activity to keep on creating replica to ensure there are no data outage, or in case there are some corrupt DB as well, your data has got a right image generation from a basis perspective, but we do not want that right now. Okay, and here is the way saying who all you would like your database to connect to. So for example, here we see that it says that only DB connection which are relevant to BTP IP address should be allowed. You can also say that if there are some on-premise system also willing to connect to that, allow that. So for that, we have cloud connectors. On top of it, as you can see, there are also ways to allow all the IP address to keep your database open. So any third-party APIs or during the deployment, if generate another IP, or if you are also on VPN, those calls should also be allowed. So I can do that. If you want, you can also have BTP IP address plus certain whitelisted. If your IP address has some range, you can also specify it over here. So I'll go with this one, but in organization, you will see specific IP address for the whitelisting purpose. You will see this one being used mostly. Okay, I'll just go next, and you will just simply review and create this. So what it would do is it will create a database instance, and it might take some time in order for that particular database to switch from a, let's just say, creation mode, which is creating over here, to the running mode. Once it's in running, then only you will be able to use it. That's the bare minimum, or I can say that's a requirement for you to use any of the database. Okay, any of the database instance. But there is a minimum thing that you will need in order for us to switch from your HANA, switch to your HANA DB from your SQLite. So that's the thing. That's why we just use that. Okay, I'll just cut this. I'll just stop this execution, maybe it might take, let's just say 10 to 15 minutes. We won't be able to switch this, maybe I guess in this session, but there are a few more things which we would like to see. Okay. There are a few more basics things. We'll spend some more minute into that as well. So let's just say this one. We said that I would like to switch from SQLite to HANA DB, right? I said that it needs certain HANA dependency packages. What are those packages? So there are certain packages given in the form of a HDB plus uh, SAP HANA client. So these are the packages which are ideally needed in order for the system to work on the HANA. Okay, so what we can do is we can simply go over here and you can simply add the HANA database over here. There are 3 steps to that. First, you have to add these packages over here, HDB and HANA client. So you will simply go ahead and install npm install HANA DB package. As you can see, you have that. Plus, you have to install npm install @SAP HANA client. So which ultimately helps you perform all the queries onto the HANA DB. Okay, the moment you do that, definitely till the time you don't have HANA instance running, you won't be able to use your application even locally as well. So that's kind of a known thing because you will need a running HANA instance for that. Plus, you have to switch your dev dependency over here to say that it's now going to work on a HANA. For that, there is a keyword called CDS add HANA. The moment you add that, what it would do is it will say this is a development dependency, but your centralized CDS dependency says that it needs a HANA DB to work upon. So it says CDS require DB HANA. The moment you do that, you will see, okay, it just start, let's just say it will be able to connect to your HANA DB instance. Okay. Now, when we say all this, that it's going to work on HANA, what are the things those are going to get generated? Right. In order for us to understand that, what we have to do is we have to build our project. So as you can see, the moment you build your project, it created certain thing. For the data model, what was the data model? It was EMP APP was the namespace and it has a employee, right? So EMP APP and employee just created a database table. It says HDB table, HANA database table. These files are placed under Jan, DB SRC Jan, right? So as you can say, Jan DB has a SRC and generated component has got your HANA database table. This is a table that just got generated out of the entity that you created. As HANA works always on the column table, you will see a column table getting generated. What is the name of it? The name of it is nothing but a namespace underscore your name of the entity. It says EMP APP underscore employee. This is an entity that just got created. It says properties and this is a primary key of it. Okay, it also did the same for the another table, which is department. Right. On top of it, for all your services over here, service is nothing but in a way, as you can see over here, are going to select the data from your DB. So internally, they are nothing but a view, right? And that's the reason you will see that system over here is going to create views for that. It says employee service was the name of it. It has got employees. So employee service employee is a view. As you can see over here, Jan DB SRC, then employee service employee. So there is a view that it created and it's going to query the data. It's a view that it's created. It's going to query the data from your table. So these are underlying HANA database is going to work. For the developer, they have to create the or write the code in the form of an entity, but internally it's going to create all these components while the build is going on. And these are the components that's going to get deployed on your HANA database. So when your HANA database gets deployed, you can expect all the things which are under this Jan component, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these things to be available on your HANA database container. Okay, so this is how, or I can say this is why I was saying that the moment you write entity, it generates a table. Where it generates the table during the build, and this is the one that's going to get deployed. if you would have written another keyword, as I mentioned, CDS persistent exist, it would not have created a table at all. Okay, so that's something we are anyway going to learn maybe in the next session. But the idea is that when I say generate a table, this is how it generates a table. And during the deployment, you will see physically it generating a table as well. Okay, so maybe I guess it's too many thing. Maybe I guess to grasp at the time, I'll just take a pause over here. Anyone having any doubt on any of the things covered so far? Okay, so since we all are clear, and I think the HANA database instance should also be, as you can see now, in a running mode. So you have now got your HANA database instance also in a running mode. Now, as it has got into the running mode, let's just understand this. So for example, as I mentioned, for any of your service to work, what you will need is a database instance, which should be connected to your HANA DB. That's something we did. On top of it, it should be able to connect to that DB instance. But what we just did, as you can see from this diagram right over here, it says that you have got a database. Earlier there was a database centrally, so CF knows it. Now you created a database centrally. Your Cloud Foundry doesn't have any clue, okay, saying, okay, whether I have a, let's just say, database which I can place it into, because Cloud Foundry is not connected to DB right now. Our current step just says that, okay, this particular DB over here is existing. This exists centrally. I have to establish this connection over here between Cloud Foundry to this one. Okay, so what we can do for that? So as my DB is running over here, you can simply click on this triple dot, manage the configuration. And as you can see, there is something called instance mapping. It says map instance to the environment context to be able to create HDI container to the environment. Which environment? Cloud Foundry environment. So you can just click on add mapping. Here you can choose whether a Cloud Foundry environment or Kaima environment you are talking about. So I'll say I would like to map to Cloud Foundry. How I can identify Cloud Foundry? It says organization ID is required. So I'll just go over here. I'll go in my Cloud Foundry, click on overview. And as you can see, I have got my organization ID over here, which is my Cloud Foundry environments organization ID. I'll copy this and I have to add this over here. Your space is not required, so your same centralized DB can work on multiple one. I'll just review and save this. It says earlier there were no instance, you just created one, so I'll just save this. So now my DB is connected to my Cloud Foundry. So this setup is done, correct? So this setup over here is done. Now, what we can also plan for is we can see, okay, this Cloud Foundry connection is established, but I would like to deploy that. For that, we might have to learn the deployment artifact, how the deployment works, so that I can view those things appearing in my HANA database explorer. So if you click on this triple dot, your SAP HANA database explorer over here should be able to show all the data and everything. So like you have a SE16N, right, in ABAP. Same way here we have a database explorer. In order for the system to show that, you have to log in with credential. So if you are a user, you can log in with user. If you are admin, you can log in with admin as well. So I'll just log in with the admin one, and I can the password as well. But in order for us to view anything over here, I have to deploy my project. We have not done the deployment because we have to learn the deployment process, how the deployment works, what all things it creates. That's something we are going to understand in the session that follows. But as a groundwork, as a first thing, the base setup that you need is what are the things that CAP is capable of doing. That's something you should be quite clear about, how the tables are created, services are created. And when we say created, okay, where they are created in the generated components. That's something you should be quite clear about. Your system should be capable to generate those as well, how the multiple proxies work. And most important thing, a running HANA Cloud DB instance with a multi-environment setup. This is something which is quite easy, but it's no longer suggested. You can still do it, but it's not a suggested way of doing it. So that's the reason you will need this particular setup connection to be established. That's the first thing you should be doing. Okay, So I'll request all of you to maybe spend some time to have this setup at least up and running, because this is just the beginning. There are plenty of things those which you are going to learn the moment we start deep diving into all this. Because as I mentioned, right, there are multiple thing: backend generation, HANA cloud instance, third party connection, let's just say on-premise connection. All these things we are going to learn, and for that you have to follow along. Otherwise, maybe you will lose the touch, and maybe I guess you won't be able to understand the next topic which we are going to learn. Okay. So maybe we'll keep this session short, but I would like you guys to spend the remaining minutes to spend some time to have the setup established on your environment. Anyone having any doubt, any questions or any suggestions?
Uh,
Uh, yeah.
yes,
So
Sumit, I have one doubt.
mhm. Yeah, please.
Yeah, yeah. How my other team members can use the HANA DB? Suppose if I do, this TDS build, it is generating that table, everything, right? Suppose this package, this project, I provided to my team member, another team member to work on. How they can work on?
So look, there are two things. First, when I said dev space, it's quite local to you, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
okay, so that's the reason when I say you have to ensure you would like your multiple, let's just say team member to work on that. Your admin person ideally will be able to set up the users over here. So as you can see, currently the users which I do have over here is only mine. I
Yeah.
can create another user, I can specify that, and I can also specify the business application studio developer and HANA database viewer role to them, so that the same instance that you have created, they'll also be able to use it over here. That's one. Second, in order for them to view your code base, we have a one more topic lined up. Maybe we'll be covering that maybe in a couple of sessions, called code collaboration for the GitHub. So you will
Okay,
be seeing
okay.
how this code can be pushed into the Git. So for example, you have written, let's just say 15 lines of code, or let's just say 2 files you have generated. They want to work and let's just say create 2 more tables over here. They can pull the code and they can just start working on that. And then at that point in time, whatever change they do, the moment they push it, you will also be able to
Yeah,
combine your and his changes. So that code collaboration is also possible via GitHub. So these are the two
okay,
important steps those are needed.
okay.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. Any other
Yes, yes.
doubt?
No, no, no. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll say spend some time today to at least have the setup ready. So maybe tomorrow you're also able to follow maybe how the deployment process, how the HDA container generations and everything works. Okay. So with that, maybe we'll close today's session and maybe we'll see each other tomorrow at the same point in time. Okay. Thanks a lot everyone for joining. If you don't have any doubt, maybe we'll close it for today and we'll see each other tomorrow at the same time. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.